morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vasil Dikov. I am a Senior Account Manager with GDMFX, and I'll be bringing you today's market outlook. We'll start with the North American markets and the events from there. We had the FED Yellen speech and the existing home sales, which came out 0.01 million worse than expected at 5.53 million. The testimony of Janet Yellen was the second day of speaking. She rejected the notion that the Fed has a third pillar of policy to keep stock market prices afloat. On the second day of her semi-annual congressional testimony on Wednesday, Yellen was asked whether the US Central Bank's monetary policy is tied to boosting Wall Street's equity values. In effect, a third pillar to go along with the Fed's dual mandate of full employment and price stability. We do not target the level of stock prices, she said. That is not an appropriate thing to do. And in other matters, Yellen said that she believes the recent weakness in job creation is transitory and does not reflect the otherwise growing economy. The Dow Jones ended up with a sideways movement. The Nasdaq was 22 points up. The Dixie was down to 93.47 from 94. The two biggest movers was the US dollar versus the Swiss franc, 25 pips down. And today we're going to be having the initial jobless claims. We're also going to have the manufacturing PMI, the new home sales for May, and the FOMC member Kaplan is going to be giving out a speech. Moving on to Europe, from Switzerland we had the ZEV survey expectations, which came out at 19.4 points. The biggest mover was the US dollar versus the euro versus the US dollar, 75 pips up, and the euro versus the Canadian dollar, 110 pips up. And moving on to the UK, where everybody's going to be focusing their attention, the sterling reached its highest point versus the dollar in 2016, hours before the Brexit referendum takes place. The pound advanced 0.8% versus the greenback and 0.5% versus the euro. It also gained ground against 31 other major currencies. Two separate polls are placing the Remain campaign ahead along with major bookmakers. Sterling added a staggering 4.4% versus the dollar over the last week, and in the case of a Remain vote, we may see the currency shooting up to $1.55. The FTSE 100 closed on the Dow J at 6,202 yesterday. The pound versus the US dollar was 128 pips up. The same movement was resulted versus the Japanese yen, 128 pips up, and the pound also gained ground versus the Canadian dollar, 180 pips up. Today we're going to be having the Brexit referendum vote. The results may come as early as tomorrow. Moving on to Asia, we had the leading economic index in Japan 0.9 points better than the previous at 100 points, and the coincident index in Japan 1.8 points better than the previous at 112 points. The foreign investment in Japan stocks indicate a capital outflow with 359.4 billion yen, less than the previous week at minus 201.1 billion yen, and the foreign bond investment also indicated capital outflow with 1,325.6 yen, less than the previous at minus 457.7 billion yen. Having assets including the yen and sovereign bonds fell as confidence grew that the UK will vote to remain a member of the European Union in the Thursday referendum. The Nikkei 225 was 16 points up yesterday and 130 up today. The biggest mover was the US dollar versus the Chinese yuan, 162 pips down. Moving on to the Pacific, New Zealand Central Bank has reduced its public speaking as it battles opposing forces of a housing boom and weak inflation. The reduction comes despite the bank's stated aim to increase on-the-record communication. It also coincides with criticism of the bank's messaging from some of the economists who complained that Wheeler's only speech this year steered them in a wrong direction on the interest rates. And finally, we're going to put the commodity section of the market. The crude oil stock exchange, where inventories fell by 0.9 million last week from the week ending on June the 17th. Crude futures fell more than 1% on Wednesday amid a lower than expected US inventory draw last week. Crude oil held gains in Asia on Thursday as the market looked ahead of the UK referendum. Gold futures struggled near the lowest level in almost 2 weeks in North American trade on Wednesday as investors looked ahead of Thursday's highly anticipated referendum in the UK. The S&P 500 index had a range of 16 points. It is at 2,087 right now. The gold had a range of $11. It is at $1,264 right now. Silver had a range of 23 cents. It is at $17.24 right now. Crude oil had a $2 range down to 49.46. And natural gas is trading at $2.65 at the moment with a range of 12 cents. Thursday we're going to have the natural gas storage change, and on Friday we're going to have the Baker Hughes oil recount. That is all from me. Thank you and have a nice day.